Okay, this is the Algebra 1 video lesson for section 4.6, Formalizing Relations and Functions. Oh, this is actually the second section of that, right? Point 2. And so we're starting at problem 4. So we've already gone through the first 3 problems, and we are finishing the lesson now. In this lesson, we're determining whether relation is function. We've done that, and we're doing domain and range. And we just learned function notation. So here, we can see this is in function notation. And it says, oh, this is supposed to be there. Okay, it says, here is the function. The domain is 1, 2, 3, and 4. What's the range? So if this is the domain, remember our domain are inputs. So think of these as inputs into this function. So we're going to put 1 into this function. Like f of 1 means we're going to multiply that 1 by 1.5, negative 1.5 times 1 plus 4. And that's going to be 2.5. And so 2.5 is in the range. And none of them have 2.5 except for this one. So A is going to be the answer. That wasn't very difficult, right? And let's just double check the rest. Let's put 2 in. This is the same as negative 3 over 2. So it's easier for me to do there, right? The 2's cancel. So this is a 1. So 2.5, 1 is in the range, so that's still there. If we put a 3 in, negative 1.5 times 3 is 4.5, negative 4.5, right? 3, yeah, plus 4. So that's going to be negative 0.5. And then if we do 4, you can see, I'm going to do the fraction again. And you can just do this in the calculator too. This is this 2 cancels with this 2 here, so that's negative 6 plus 4, which is negative 2. So that's our range. And there's my negative 2. So this is my range. So this is, or remember, this is the outputs. So range is outputs and domain is inputs. Okay, so here's one for you to try. It's not multiple choice, so you have to actually do them all. The domain of g of x is 1, 3, 5, and 7. What's its range? Press pause, try this on your own, and then check back for the answer. Okay, so here the domain, or these are my inputs. And with our function notation, right, you're putting those in here, right? So you're just plugging the 1 in here, and then the 3 in here, and then the 5 in here, and the 7, and seeing your outputs. So this is what we get when we plug in our 4 inputs. We get negative 8, 0, 8, and 16. Okay, so then the last problem is a word problem. You have 3 quarts of paint to paint the trim of your house. A quart of paint covers 100 feet. The function here represents the area that Q quarts of paint cover. So we're talking about quarts of paint in their relationship to the area that it paints. What domain and range are reasonable for the function, and what's the graph of the function? So let's think. For this problem, quarts of paint, so let's think the variables. First, we have quarts of Q is quarts of paint. And then A is area painted. So we do need to figure out which one is independent versus dependent. And right, quarts of paint is going to be our independent variable, right? Because the area painted is dependent on the number of quarts of paint we have, right? So this is my dependent. So this is my X and this is my Y. So my domain is coming from this one. And then my range is coming from this one. So we can't have negative quarts of paint, but we can have 0. So our domain is going to start with 0. And then I'm going to write it in interval notation. And then quarts of paint can be, you can have part of a quart of paint. So we're going to start to 0, and then we can go to, let's see, the quart of paint represents, hold on. Okay, it's actually the first, I'm looking for like how many, it's saying what's our limit on paint. We have 3 quarts, so the most we can have is 3. So anywhere from 0 to 3. So this is my domain. It starts at 0, includes 0, that's why it's a bracket, and then goes all the way to 3, and then can include 3, and then anywhere in between. So maybe, I can't remember if you've learned that notation or not yet, but maybe our X is in between 0 and 3. We can write it like that. Right, X is greater than or equal to 0, but less than or equal to 3. Okay, so that is what domain is reasonable. The range right, is going to be, we're using this domain. The lowest value is 0, right? 0 area. This is 100. Q, 100 times 0 is 0. Obviously, the area painted, the lowest that could be is 0. You can have negative area painted. And then the highest it can be is if we use all 3 paints. That would be 100 times 3, so that would go all the way up to 300. You can't actually paint more than 300 square feet with 3 quarts of paint. And then you can, anywhere in between works. So this is, and you can include 300. So Y is going to be between 0 and 300. It can include 0 and it can include 300. So this is my range. And then what's the graph of the function? Sorry, I didn't really leave room for the graph. But right here, 1, 2, 3, 100, 200, 300. And each quart of paint, right at 0 is 0. 3 is 300. Right after 100, 200. Here's the graph. And it's just starts at 0, ends at 3. Starts at 0, ends at 300. That's my graph. Okay. And then there's one last problem for you to try and, if you have 7 quarts of paint, what's the domain and range? So just do this problem again with it. 7 quarts instead of 3. Press pause, try this on your own, and then check back for the solution. Okay, hopefully you got 0 to 7 is the domain and 0 to 700 is the range. I did just notice a mistake. I just always use X and Y, right? But in this, right, I literally said this is Q. And so, right, this is my X, but down here I should have said Q, right? So Q is between 0 and 3. It's my domain because it's my independent variable, which we usually call X, but in this case it's Q. So this is my independent, but that's why we did domain. And this should say A, so area. And same here, I noticed it while I was doing this. Okay, so the quarts of paint are between 0 and 7, and then the area is between 0 and 700 square feet. All right, that's it. Time for practice. Enjoy.